Yat Eitanem, Masananishlan. This is Navajo Grandma. I was looking at the news the other day and saw this, and I wanted to share this video with you. It's a link that you need to look at in the Navajo Grandma's description for the video, and you can actually watch about the Northern Cheyenne tribe honors their ancestors by running from Nebraska to Montana. These are 97 youth that are running, and the rest of the video that you will see is basically explaining what truly happened. And the best I can do, because this is so important for all of us to know the trials of tribulations, and yet you see these children being able to honor their ancestors who suffered and who were forced relocation to Oklahoma. And the video does explain some of it, but Grandma goes into it a little deeper. And I want to invite you to see this. This is another winter story. In 1877, after the previous November Dull Knife fight, Crazy Horse surrendered at Fort Robinson in northwestern Nebraska. A few Cheyenne chiefs and their people surrendered as well. The chiefs that surrendered at the fort were Dull Knife, Little Wolf, Standing Elk, and Wild Hog, with nearly 1,000 Cheyenne. On the other hand, Two Moon surrendered at Fort Keokuk with 300 Cheyenne in 1877. The Cheyenne wanted and expected to live on the reservation with the Sioux in accordance with an April 29, 1868 treaty of Fort Laramie, as you see right there, of which both Chief Dull Knife and Chief Little Wolf had signed. However, shortly after arriving at Fort Robinson, it was recommended that the Northern Cheyenne be moved to the Darlington Agency on the South Cheyenne and Arapaho Indian Reservation near Fort Reno in present-day Oklahoma. Confinement in the South. Following confirmation from Washington, D.C., the Cheyenne started their move with 972 people. Upon reaching the Cheyenne-Arapaho Reservation on August 5, 1877, there was only 937. Some elderly had perished along the way, and some young men had crept away and headed back north. After reaching the reservation, the Northern Cheyenne noticed how poverty-stricken it was and began to fall sick in the autumn of 1877. When conditions did not improve after a federal investigation into reservation conditions, the Cheyenne were given authorization to hunt. When the Cheyenne attempted to hunt game, they found none. But in the winter, by the winter of 1877 to 1878, the territory was just a wasteland of dead buffalo remains, as the U.S. Army had sanctioned and actively endorsed the wholesale slaughter of bison herds. Unfortunately, in 1878, there was also a measles outbreak that struck the Northern Cheyenne. In August 1878, the Cheyenne chiefs began preparations to move back north. On September 9th, 1878, Little Wolf, Dull Knife, Wild Hog, and Left Hand told their people to organize to leave. The runaways totaled 353 in all. 92 men were of fighting age, while the remaining 261 were women, children, and the elderly. escaping to the north. In the early morning of September 10, the band fled up the northern Canadian River. By 3 a.m., the alarm was sounded that the Cheyenne were gone. Passing the present sites of Vá'ôhtáma, Oklahoma, and Canton, Oklahoma, they crossed north over the watershed into the Cimarron Basin, crossing the Cimarron River the evening of September 10. There, near the present site of Freedom, Oklahoma, they rested and then trailed 11 miles up Turkey Creek to a waterhole called Turkey Springs in hilly country near the border of Oklahoma and Kansas. After a few hours' rest there, Dull Knife and a few others led the women and children on to St. Jacob's Well and the Big Basin, what is now called Clark County, Kansas, where they camped. There was a battle at Turkey Springs, and there was a battle of Punished Woman's Fork on the way. There was a cavalry constantly after them. In Prairie Dog Creek, there was another problem that existed. There was men and boys that were killed. Women were raped, and older girls were raped. There was just settlers where, they approached them and they killed them point blank. There was so much killing just to get back home. From Turkey Creek on, it was a running battle across Kansas and Nebraska. The soldiers from all surrounding forts, Fort Wallace, Fort Hays, Fort Dodge, Fort Riley, and Fort Kearney, were in pursuit of the Cheyenne. About 10,000 soldiers and 3,000 settlers chased the Cheyenne both night and day. During the last 2 weeks of September, the Army had caught up to the Cheyenne 5 times, but the Cheyenne were able to evade the Army by keeping an arduous ground where it was challenging for the Army to follow them. The fall of 1878, after 6 weeks of running, the Cheyenne chiefs held council, and it was discovered that 34 of the original 297 were missing. Most had been killed, but a few had decided to take other paths to the north. This is where the Cheyenne split into 2 groups. The ones that wished to stop running were going along with Dull Knife to Red Cloud Agency. Wild Hog and Left Hand also decided to follow Dull Knife. Little Wolf continued north, intending to go to the Powder River country. The sad part of this is, on January 9th, 1879, Dull Knife still refused to return south. However, Wild Hog and Left Hand agreed to talk, but said their people would not go. As a result, Wild Hog was held as a prisoner and shackled. At 9:45 that night, the Cheyenne tried to make a daring escape using the dismantled guns that they had hidden upon arriving at the fort. The Cheyenne were immediately followed, and many were killed in the Fort Robinson breakout. By morning, 65 Cheyenne, 23 of them wounded, were returned to Fort Robinson as prisoners. Only 38 Cheyenne had fully escaped, 32 of whom were together moving north, pursued by the Army. 6 Cheyenne were hiding only a few miles from the fort among rocks and were found during the next days. The other 2 Cheyenne, led by Little Fingernail, were discovered in a small hollow above Antelope Creek, a tributary of Hat Creek, some 35 miles northwest of Fort Robinson. And after a final battle, only 9 were left alive. The dead were buried in a mass grave called the Pit. In 1994, the Northern Cheyenne reclaimed the remains of all those killed and buried in Nebraska. They were reinterred on the Northern Cheyenne Indian Reservation on a hill overlooking Busby, Montana. But after some delay, the Northern Cheyenne Indian Reservation was established in southeastern Montana near the Black Hills, and they were never forced to return to the south. So there was some relief, and there were people, some of the chiefs who were taken to Kansas in 1879 for murder. Isn't that ironic that they were taken and not the military? And this was all due to what happened with Custer's last stand. The United States military wanted full control of the Native American tribes, and the Northern Cheyenne were the ones that joined with Sitting Bull. They started going after many of these tribes. If you can see this red area here, this is where, the Exodus, I put forced Exodus, where they came, and this is a sad place where, look how barren. I put barren land upon arrival to reservation in Oklahoma. And you wonder why they wanted to leave, where they had, buffalo and food, and they knew how to forage in their lands, where they came from. At the beginning, in the description, there are 2 links I would like you to look at. Take the time, and it tells you about the run, how these young children, the Northern Cheyenne children, are experiencing how their ancestors went back north, and the 400-mile run. In fact, today is Sunday and they are still running. They started, I think, on Thursday, and I believe they said there's 97 of them. They have vans, they alternate. Listen to their expressions. You know how they say, oh, I'm so tired, my shoes hurt. Then what I did was I was thinking about my ancestors. They were barefooted. They went into the night, and they ran to return to their homelands. And that, one 11-year-old girl says, I thought of this as my feet started to ache when I was running in the snow. See, they're doing this in the wintertime. It just within days, just the past Thursday. And I think they said that it takes 5 days for them to make it back. And I salute their dignity, these children, and the leaders who are trying so hard to help these children to see how important their ancestors are and the horrific conditions they found themselves in, being forced to go to places and reservations so foreign to them. And you wonder why they ran into the night and ran barefooted, bloody feet in the winter to try to make it home. I hope you understand. This is so emotional. This is why these children are running. And I'm trying to help you to see how important it is for us to realize that there are so many Native American tribes that suffered because of the European coming into this land and, in essence, desecrating this. Now, I also want you to understand the other opposite side of the coin. These are the things that will eventually befall you if you are a Christian, if you believe in God, if you believe in the Constitution, if you believe certain things that communism does not care about. They will do the same thing to you. I know this, and this is what I'm saying. Beware, be awake, and remember your survival techniques, but most of all, you need to remember that God is there and that He will support you and bless you and help you. And this is what these people did. It was their prayer run. It was their prayers and the remembrance of their ancestors and what their homeland was about. The United States, this land, in God we trust, this has been entrusted to us. You cannot sell this land. This is God-given, just as much as water. Why are we buying water? This is a gift from God. It's really sad to see our state of affairs right now. But back to the Northern Cheyenne, I am so thankful that to this year, 2024, these children are remembering their ancestors, and that's why they are running through the snow as we speak. I pray you will humble yourselves and pray for them and to help others. in their weaknesses and the struggles they continue to have. This is not just Native Americans. This is so many races, and people who come here legally deserve to be watched over and cared for. I hope you remember this. With this, I had to say this. This is a winter story, and it brings me to tears. But I salute these Northern Cheyenne nation, the Northern Cheyenne children. Keep up the good work. Keep moving forward. Don't let the negative bother you or hurt you. When it shows its face, run from it and stand with prayer. I pray for this blessing upon the Northern Cheyenne nation and their struggles, even to this day. This is Navajo Grandma.